The aim of Black Mental Matters is to tell experiences with honesty. Therefore, some discussions may trigger an adverse reaction. If a discussion is beginning to upset you, we advise that you please stop listening and talk to your support team.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm back and I'm Black. Welcome to Black Mental Matters, where we center the stories, struggles, and strength of Black people. And today's guest, guess what, brings us all three. I'm talking about none other than Thomas J. Bacote, a.k.a. Tommy B., who has spent over 30 years shaping brands in the broadcast and media world. He's a podcaster, content creator, audio producer, and marketing strategist with a serious track record. From directing major radio markets with iHeartMedia to launching the Castropolis Podcast Network and his own show, This is the G Podcast. But behind that business savvy is a deeper, more personal mission, and that's healing and advocating for those impacted by the foster care and adoption system. Now, here's a number that sets the stage. Although Black children make up about 14% of the U.S. child population, they account for over 22% of those in foster care. And while they wait longer to be adopted, they are less likely to be placed permanently. These numbers tell us what Tommy's lived. Black children are overrepresented, underserved, and often overlooked in a system that's supposed to protect them. And now he's using his voice, his story, and his 3 C's, content, connectivity, and community, to uplift others and challenge the system. This one's for anybody who's ever felt unchosen, unheard, or unseen. So we're going to get right into it with none other than my man who has the plan, Mr. Tommy B. How you doing, Tommy?
You got to go on radio DJ on me, man.
Well, I can't help it. You know I was there.
No, I know. And you know, I'm really, honored to be on your show, man. You and I connected by fate. I'd say at a convention, quote unquote,
Clayton State,
and we've been connected ever since, man. And it's been a blessing for me, candidly,
yeah.
So I'm glad to see you doing Black Mental Matters, man, and I followed your show and you do phenomenal work. So kudos to you.
Transparency. Tommy's been an integral part of that, helped me get started and everything. So love you like a brother, man. So
amen. Same
yes,
here.
sir. Yes, sir. Well, let's get into it, man. Let's get back to your beginnings, man. And again, as we say, adoption and foster care. What can you share about your early experience in the foster care system and adoption, Tommy?
Well, for me, I really consider myself fortunate. I was born at Grady. I'm a Grady baby. As I say on the podcast all the time, I began in foster care, from the womb. I was given up, and I was fortunate enough to actually go to a good foster home, and I spent 7 years there. So candidly, from Grady to the foster mother, I was there for 7 years and eventually was adopted by the daughter of the foster mother, who was a teacher. And the great opportunity for me at that foster care or that group home was the fact that she was a teacher. So even though we had a lot of other kids in the group home, she took to me. I was fortunate. And I get dragged into the schools. So Atlanta public school system, I'm 3 years old. I'm sitting in the kindergarten, for a couple of years. So I was really fortunate, man, to you talk about head start. So it was like really head start. I'm sitting, I'm tagging along with her. But it led to a good life, man. Even though I wasn't adopted until I was 7, elementary school was cool, high school, college. I got my journalism degree. I went into radio. I spent, as you mentioned, I'm not going to go deep into that, 30 years. It was fun. But, one of the things, man, when we talked about Black Mental Matters and adoption, there's a sense of being the other, even when you're adopted and you go into a family or you're quote unquote part of that family, you get that last name, a lot of other family members still consider you the outsider. And I think a lot of, first of all, the numbers you mentioned regarding the foster care system is a problem. I'm not going to get on here and get on my soapbox about what's going on in the state of Georgia. We've heard some of the problems, but it's a problem that eventually spills over into society. And when you talk about not only the issues and the challenges in society, but it also challenges with mental health, you know. So, again, I spent probably a bit of my professional life going back into some of the group homes. I was a DJ. I was, spinning, doing, I'm gonna say clubs. Can I say club? Yeah, it's a grown folk
Yeah,
show.
man, we
Yeah, I was
grown.
doing clubs.
We grown.
You
We
know,
black and we black. Okay.
so, when they would call me and say, "Hey, would you volunteer?" I took that opportunity to volunteer. But one of the things, and I told you, I wasn't always upfront about my adoption status, the fact that I was adopted. And I found one day, I had a conversation with one of the kids at one of the homes, and they asked me, say, "Hey, tell me about you," and I said, interestingly enough, I'm adopted, and I could just see their eyes lighten up, and they went over going over to their friends, "Hey, he's adopted too," or he went through foster care too. So they identified with me based on, the fact that I grew up in foster care. But that's a little bit about the background, man. And one more thing, and I'll say I lost my adopted mom in 2012, and a friend of mine gave me an ancestry kit, and I was fortunate enough to find my birth mother. Not as of this taping a couple of years ago, and the family, unfortunately, she had passed. But I met her family, met her brothers and sisters, and they've been very, very. They've embraced me, and that's a beautiful thing.
Yes, yes. And you mentioned it's not just the state of Georgia, it's throughout the country,
Mhm.
where we're having the challenges in the foster care system, the adoption system. I think when we were talking about this earlier, I told you I'm actually named after a child that my mom fostered, Vincent, that they didn't let her keep.
Yeah.
And that surprised me in life when she was telling me this story about that. But there are those. So I guess what I want to say is I want to take my hat off to the great foster parents out there who are doing the work and helping to help raise some great kids like yourself, man. I mean, uh, it's not like you got a big A on your forehead or anything like that. Who would be one of the most savvy people I know in the media and radio, and so it can always come out to be a good situation. And I'm just thankful that it did for you. Now Tommy, you're
It's not
adopted.
all perfect though now.
Of course not. Well, it's not perfect if you got mom and daddy at home. So
True,
I
true,
don't
bro.
know what people are looking for these
Yeah, I
days. It's
know.
never going to be all perfect.
So true.
I think they wrote about it in a book. That it's going to be some challenges. But
Yes.
I want your adopted family was black, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. My adopted mother, and the interesting thing is she was a single mother.
Mm.
When she adopted me, she had divorced. So that's an interesting scenario because I took the, last name of her ex. So, not too much interaction there, but I was fortunate enough to, or she was fortunate enough to remarry.
Hmm.
And I had an outstanding stepfather who I'm constantly in contact with. Good guy, and again, it was a blessing to have him. You know,
Well, a lot of times Hollywood, the movies, when we see movies, a lot of times the foster child is taken in, a black foster child taken in by a white family,
yeah,
and you hear of stories. Tommy Davidson, I just learned this story recently, man.
yeah.
It is incredible. But I think that the question: do you think that influenced your understanding of blackness and culture growing up because you were adopted by a black family as opposed to, say, a white family?
I think it's in a major way because not that I have anything negative to say about transracial adoption. I think who when you can get someone to choose you and love you and raise you properly, you know that's a blessing. but it matters. It mattered for me, as you know, I do a news, politics, pop culture podcast, and it helps me based on what I grew up in. Because I grew up in the hood. I mean, West Side Atlanta, Bankhead. You've heard, the Bankhead Kmart that T.I. will talk about. That was right around the corner from where I lived. Grove Park Elementary School, all that Westlake, that area. I grew up in that area in the 70s, and for the most part, you didn't, when you saw white people in that area, there was typically, you were wondering if there was a problem. If somebody was going to jail, something was going to go down. So I really didn't, uh, I guess, integrate until high school, all the way up to, through elementary school, 8th grade is when we went to East Point, which was at the time predominantly white. But I think it matters, man, when you're in a challenging situation or a challenging environment. Not to say that, you don't have those skills or that skill set, if you're adopted by white parents, but there's some things white parents can't teach you, about the challenges you face. And I was very fortunate to be in a situation where, I had a lot of, black women around me, a lot of black men around me who understood the dynamics of society. And they would always, not in a necessarily negative way, but would, tell me, hey, you need to watch out for this,
Go
for
down
that.
there. Don't be out late. Don't. And yeah, stay away from those kids right there. I can already. Sometimes you can just take a look and you can say, "Oh, nope, that ain't the ones you need to be around, bro."
It was eye-opening, Vince. I
Yeah,
mean, when and again, I mean, I think if you grew up in a black, I mean, you grew up with Gary,
yeah.
Indiana,
I was
you know,
black before anybody. That's right.
you know what I'm saying? So it's like, I grew up, black mayor, Maynard Jackson,
That's right.
black police chief, you know, it was a black city.
That's right.
So, I think that's, it's a positive, it positively compounds your identity, you know, when you're in a black household. I don't advocate only, black families or black couples adopting black kids. I just think that you need to understand what they face,
Yes.
and you
Yes.
need to educate. And if you can't do it, bring someone else in, because it does impact the psyche. You talk about stigma on this show a lot, and and in a lot of cases, uh, adoption and being an adoptee for a lot of people is a stigma.
Yes. Yes.
So one of the things I try to do, or in terms of my interaction, or when I did interact heavily with the group homes and the foster care homes, when I was, doing my volunteer work, I did that because I wanted to normalize adoption and reduce the stigma, if that makes sense.
Yes, yes. Well, just going back for a moment, you talk about, being from Atlanta and seeing people, well, first of all, having people that look like you in your family,
Hmm.
people that are in charge look like you. You say Maynard Jackson. I had Mayor Richard Gordon Hatcher, the superintendents, the teachers. So your mom was a teacher. She took, so, people of prominence, people of respect,
Hmm.
being able to see that. But at the same time, no matter what, and it's one of the issues I have just across the board, how we, how do I want to say, define ourselves out here, even when everything, you can have everything, all the check marks checked, but still, oh, he's too articulate. Oh, he's too light skinned. Oh, and I've said it before many times. You've raised a sharp young man. I've raised two sharp young men, and it breaks your heart when people try to set them, apart. I mean, it's something different about them. No, they're just kids trying to achieve because of what was placed, in their lives, and it just it's one of those things that one of my pet peeves, because you find yourself being caught in the middle. I guess that's what I'm looking for. I wanted to ask you, as a fostered child, being adopted, were there ever times where you felt like in between, not fully belonging in one space or another, and how you handled that?
Well, it's interesting, man, because not all, even though you got black family, not all your family's on board. And it's interesting because even as I got older, have my own family, and even at the point I'm where I am now, uh, you know, when you're last to get the invites, you know what I'm saying? There are just some people who will always look at you as the other. And quite frankly, there were a couple of times where, yeah, it sparked some anger. But for the most part, man, you just have to, look at it from a standpoint is it's their problem, not mine. And even when I tell my kids, and I'm sure you tell your kids the same thing. Look, if I'm more articulate, if I, have a way of doing things different from you, it's your problem if you see that I'm a problem because I don't see you as a problem. It's just like for me, man, I grew up in a foster home where there were people from all kinds of backgrounds, man, homeless, uh, you know, uh, hustle man, drug dealers, families, even doing, the music thing. We're dealing with hip hop generation, different vibes, different people. You may talk a different slang, different delivery, but we're still humans. We're still trying to make it. So you just have to tell people, man, look, if you got a problem with me, that's your problem.
That's right.
And just keep it moving.
What,
And it's hard to do. It's hard, early on until
that's right. Until you get
you
that
really,
confidence in yourself.
yeah, yeah. And that's not easy, man. There's always something. You got to take a breath. You got to go woosah, the woosah. Just
What
keep
would
it
you say,
moving.
Tommy B, is the
Yeah.
biggest misunderstanding people have about the kids in foster care or adoptees, especially the black ones?
Well, I think it just depends on the individual kid. I think in a lot of cases, some people just view it as the kid being problematic versus the family situation because in a lot of cases they don't know the family situation. So when I would volunteer and go to like there was a group home which is now Metropolitan over Cleveland Avenue over in the East Point, Atlanta area. And a lot of the kids, man, are really good kids in bad situations. And you would say to people like, "Hey, I'm going over here to volunteer," and they say, "Man, you going over there to mess with them bad kids?" I'm like, "Wait, what do you mean by that?" Well, apparently they got rejected, or they're not being adopted. I'm like, look, you got to understand, it's not their fault. It's whatever's going on with the people who brought them into this world. Don't blame them. So I think that's part of the misconception. But I think again, I think ultimately, man, it comes down to the individual and who you're dealing with, Vince. There's just some people who have a problem, as you know, in our community. We're not all on the same page. We got stereotypes.
Kinfolk, as they say.
Oh, absolutely, dog. I mean, when we report, I mean, I'm not going to get political and go into what's going on, but it's interesting when you see like what's going on with Essence right now, and you look at, I consider it the family's fight, regardless of where you're from. You're black, and you got opportunity, and you might be from the Caribbean, you might be from Africa, you might be American born, but ultimately, by the face, by the color, you might run into some challenges, and you might run into some challenges where you need one another. And to be divided just based on what you know about someone's background is I don't want to say just hurtful, but it puts you at a disadvantage. Just like I've seen you do your podcast where you talk to Asian Americans, you talk to all the different cultures, and I'm sure you can agree with me. It's in everybody's best interest when you get along.
That's right.
That you know what I'm saying? When now that doesn't mean you put up with anything. But what it does mean is when there's an opportunity for you to work together, regardless of your color, regardless of your background, because there are a lot of people who look at an adoptee as, oh, that is the other.
Mhm.
Oddly enough.
Well, there are those that's always looking for problems as rather than solutions.
Right. They're looking for a reason.
I don't have time, or the bandwidth to just continue to dive deeper and deeper into what's the problem. What do
Yeah.
we do?
Yeah.
That's what I always want to know. And so it's obvious talking to you, Tommy, that you found. But I'd like to know, were there any supports in place for you, or was it that you had to find your own path? Were there some things that were, you know, established that helped you, guide you in your situation?
Well, I mean, initially, I mean, I can think back, I can go back even to my, how do you say, not a counselor, but the person who was assigned
Case
uh,
manager.
case manager, my case manager. I remember my case manager. I remember going, jumping in her car, going because basically they put you in the car and drive around and go places because they want to find out how things are going, kind of, put you at ease so you can tell the truth. But I would always, hey, I'm having a great time. It's great here. I hope you ain't taking me away because
Mm,
I ain't ready to go. But
yes.
the point is, I can remember having a really good case manager. I had a great, an excellent, the mother of the foster home, or the who actually, it was in her name, who became my grandmother, was phenomenal. My mother was, I mean, I can't even speak to the level of support I got from her. If any of my friends see this, they know she was like the Kool-Aid mom.
Okay.
You know, you know what I'm saying? I mean, my friends were, I don't want to say her friends, but if I came to her and say, "Hey, this is my friend," that person would almost be treated like family, and it lasted like that. So I got phenomenal support from my immediate family. I wouldn't say everybody, but I would say just, in terms of, my mom, her mom, and then, going on, really and truly as an adoptee, it's easy for you to see people as family who truly, who aren't your blood and not because that's how you developed. I mean, you developed from being chosen or choosing.
Mhm.
So I've really kind of built over the years. I have a support family over the years. You
Yes.
know, and
Yes.
so a lot of folks, and sometimes all your kinfolk.
Ain't skin. All your skin folk ain't kin folk. Kin folk ain't skin folk.
That's, I mean, I don't have to tell y'all that, and I don't mean that, not on a negative tip. This is a positive show. So yeah.
Yes, yes. Tommy, you talk about, you're a businessman, and you talk about the three C's in your business: content, connectivity, and community. How do these ideas apply to your advocacy and healing work?
Well, I mean, just like doing this show, it's content, for me to get the word out, and maybe the next time someone's in a situation where someone admits that they're an adoptee, or someone's in foster care, you think about it. And
Mm,
you think about what they may be going through. So, from just putting the word out, content, and then connectivity through me, I'm a geek. I mean, just like, you and I, we're on that wavelength where we're always looking at technology like social media, yeah, all the different platforms, that's part of the connectivity. And then just community. When there's an opportunity for me to go out and do something, and I volunteered, I was on the board of United Way, for probably maybe 5, 6 years, as part of my professional career. And it was something I took pride in when I had the opportunity to help and benefit this particular cause. So yeah, I mean, and that's being out in the community, and not just being in the ivory tower, but getting your hands, going out and DJing for them, or hosting parties. You've done that.
oh
You
yeah,
understand.
we've been
You
out there
understand
together.
how they
Mhm.
feel about that, and what that means. So, uh, you know, again, the content, just you and I having a conversation, or having a conversation with the right people, getting the information out through the connectivity, and then actually going out and doing it in the community. Yeah.
Well, I know, again, with the Constructibilist podcast network, it's from the very beginning, the strategy is to use as a tool for transformation and mental health. And hey, man, I think definitely succeeding. And I definitely appreciate what you have done to assist in that. I have just a couple more questions, man. Time goes fast. It tells me this good, Tommy. What's one practical change, or if you got more than that, but that you'd like to see in the foster care system today?
I would like to see more better conditions for a lot of these kids, man. A lot of these kids are put into homes out of desperation, and it's last minute. Not every foster parent is has a good heart or is looking to impact in a positive way. In a lot of cases, it's a check. Let's just be honest and admit it. I'm not saying that's all the case, but when you get in those situations, it can be tough it can be tough, so we need to make sure that the conditions are right, the people are right. We need more volunteers in that area. Um, Conditions more than anything, so I'd say that one thing.
So I guess the vetting process of potential foster, it's no doubt there are some who do it. They have ulterior motives for doing it, whether it be monies and things like that. Not to
Right.
say that that's all, but so I like that. Let's vet them more. What about the kids themselves? What advice would you have, Tommy, for young Black adoptees or foster kids who may be feeling lost or invincible right now?
I think they have to tell their story, and they have to be, just, in a lot of cases, I think you and I had a conversation. I would not admit it in high school. I never really admitted it. And even, even though I like seventh grade, I'm sorry, not seventh, but 7 years old, I remember the day, you know what I'm saying, going in and signing the papers. And, but to me, it seemed as if I was always her son, my adopted mother's son. So I never really said anything. I didn't say anything until I saw that it was a positive benefit for another adoptee. And then you look at, especially when you do, success is relative, man. It doesn't matter in terms of all the stuff I've done versus just somebody who worked a 9 to 5 positive way and fed their family. But you got a lot of adoptees and I'll just name some of the people like Keisha Cole, Jamie Foxx, Colin Kaepernick, Simone Biles. You mentioned Tommy Davidson, Key and Peele, Keegan Michael Key was adopted, Eartha Kitt. I could go on and on, but this means a lot to people who are going through it. That the fact that those people made it and they succeeded and made a mark on society. So, I say to them, hey, you need to find other adoptees, but also tell your story to people you know. Tell the story. You don't have to just come out and say it in the beginning when you meet people, but as you develop relationships, just like you and I, eventually you talk about it, you bring it up. Hey, by the way, because there's always going to be a situation where it comes up.
Oh, I love that, man. Thank you so much. You make me think of the Job Corps program, which unfortunately they're shutting down. But I was a big advocate. Some of those kids come from similar situations, but holding up. George Foreman was a Job Corps graduate. Halle Berry. There's a laundry list. I knew judges and big business owners. Like you say, tell your story. That is not a strike on your life. Matter of fact, in a lot of cases, it makes you stronger. You can deal with things that a lot of other people cannot. I was talking earlier. We only got a couple minutes, but I gotta ask, what do you want, Tommy? I know this wasn't your situation, but this is what we always see. And with TikTok and everything now, I'll see a story of a white mother, adoptive mother. She got a Black girl. She don't know what to do with the hair.
Yeah.
These things. The hip hop young kids. Anything that you can say to help those non-Black adoptive parents understand about raising a Black child?
You got to make sure you socialize your kids in situations that are positive for their culture. You know what I mean? You still have to make sure, in a way, that they understand who they are and their roots, you know, because they're not always going to be with you. You're not always going to be there to protect them. And the worst thing you can do is not expose them to things that will help them later in life when they're on their own. So, I think, how do you say it? Blocking them from their culture, it will eventually come back to bite them somewhere later in life. So do it now, do it early.
Great advice, Tommy. Tommy B, I really appreciate you, man, taking this time, and you didn't have to share what you did. And that's what makes you such a powerful person. Full transparency. Again, we talk quite often, but to put it, out here, just like myself, and trying to make sure that there's a legacy of the tragedies that happened in my family. I don't. It's the way we can do it is by talking about it, by getting it out there, by showing others you're not alone. And man, and you're a great radio guy and media man as well. So hats off, man. I thank you so much again for taking this time. And this is not the G podcast. If you ever,
I was about to say it.
I'm the voice. I come up. This is the G podcast. This is not.
This is the voice, man. Truly the voice.
Keep
Voice
helping
is
people,
everything.
man. Keep helping
Yeah.
people, Tommy, and we thank you so much. Okay.
Man, I just want to say thank you, man. So I appreciate you, man, and keep doing what you're doing. It's an important show.
Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Tommy B, he reminds us that your past doesn't define you, but it can fuel your purpose. From navigating the system to now challenging it, he shows that healing is possible when we own our stories and surround ourselves with the right support. And let's not forget, around 15,000 youth aged out of the foster system last year without ever being adopted. 15,000. Too many of them will face homelessness, incarceration, or mental health struggles. And it doesn't have to be that way. We can change, and we need it now. If you're a Black adoptee, a parent, a youth worker, or just someone who cares, take Tommy B's words to heart. Content matters, connection matters, and community is everything. You can learn more about his work and mission. Check it out, the show notes. And as always, remember, mental health is not a luxury, it's a necessity. I'm Vince the Voice, and this is Black Mental Matters. Until next time, stay strong, stay grounded, and stay in the fight.